So hi, I'm going to do the real quick part 2 for our March series, Winning in the Wilderness, when we look at Elijah and the widow. So this is a season of, like, it's always seasons, right? You got reaping seasons, you got sowing seasons, and so reaping and sowing is just, you got time when you working, and it's time when you reaping the benefits of all that work you put in. And so this is a working season in the wilderness. God is working, and he's working to change us from the inside out. He's trying to perfect our character. He's trying to change our conduct. And he's trying to have us to have a deeper relationship with him. So how do we win? And not just win at life, right? I'm not some motivational speaker that's trying to get you to win at life. I'm trying to get you to win in the wilderness. As believers, there are going to be some trying times. How do you still keep moving forward? How do you hold on to your faith? How do you hold on to Christ when everything will tell you that you everything except for a son of God, a daughter of God? Everything. Like, it will feel like you're everything except for who he says you are. And so how do we win during those seasons? Okay, this is part 2 of our winning in the wilderness. And we're going to look at Elijah and the widow. And the thing that we want to pull out today is, what is our response when God asks us to give our private stash? And sometimes our private stash ain't stashing. It's on empty. It's in reserves. It's in the negative. What can we pull from this to help us to see how God wants us to respond? Okay, so the number one thing we look at right now, we're going to set the context again in case you're joining us for the first week. First thing we said was direction, the decree, and then our human decision. So Elijah was directed by God to make an announcement to the king Ahab that it wasn't going to rain. It was too much sin in the land. God's like, I'm drying it up. Then he told him that I've made provisions for you, his decree. I've made provisions for you to get what you need from a widow woman. In a place where they don't even believe in God. But that's neither here nor there. So Elijah makes the human decision to do what God told him to do. And he's going to this place, Zaphareth, to meet this widow that's supposed to feed him and provide his physical nourishment. So he goes and he meets this widow woman, and that brings us to the first part, was then he gave her some direction. Go make me a little bread, bring me a little water. And so then the widow woman hears what God has decreed if she does this. If you do this, there will always be food in your house. Your joy of oil, your bread, your flour, it will never end until God sends rain. And so we see here her human decision to do. And so the first thing we're going to look at is she was willing to do when it was from a public resource. And so he told her to go get some water. Well, water was in the wells. It wasn't in her house. Water was in a well. You brought your bucket. You were a part of that town. It was pre-dug. Sure, I'll get you some water. That's not a problem. That's on public display, public access. Everybody got access to water in the well. I see you are a man of God. It ain't my God, but I bring you a little water from the well. I got a pitcher. I bring you a little water from the well. Willing. So much like us. If it's something that everybody got access to, Google can share it. Yeah, I'll send you a Google link, a YouTube video. You know, that public resource. And we are so willing to give what's readily and publicly available. But look at her response when he said she was willing to do that. It said as she left to go do it, he then called out to her and said, and would you bake me a little bread? That is where she drew the line. She said, I'm just out here picking up sticks. I wasn't finna do nothing but bake a little bread for me and my son so that we could just die. This not just all that I have. This is me knowing that all that I have ain't enough. And this ain't just all that I have ain't enough for me, because that would be okay. We sometimes like that. If all that I have is not enough for me, we sometimes pinch off a little piece and give it to the next person. But when all that I have that is not enough for me, and it ain't enough for my children, that's where I draw the line. I can't get you nothing from out of my house, taking it out of my kids' mouth. And so look what the prophet tells her. He says, yes. Yep, that part. The part that's private. The part that ain't enough for you. Give it to God. Give it to the man of God. He said that part. If you go and do that part, God decrees that your jar of oil will never run dry and your jar of flour will never run dry until there is rain sent on the land. And so what is God challenging us to do? Because these are hard times. Layoffs. I just got notice that I'm being laid off June 1st. These are trying times. These are lonely times. These are destitute times. These are times when my emotional energy and the things that I'm going through every single day, I barely got enough hope. I barely got enough patience. I barely got enough love. I barely got enough money to go around and pay my bills or my children's bills. And God is saying that part, that private part, I'm not asking you for what's on public display. I'm coming behind the scene, and I want that piece that don't nobody else know. It ain't enough to make ends meet, but that I know it's not enough to make ends meet. And if you decide to do what I directed you to do in this difficult place, my decree says that you'll never run out. Y'all, I want y'all to think on that this week. Think on that. He decreed that you'll never run out. But I can't pay my tithes because after taxes, I didn't even got what I originally started with. God says, you give me that part. You'll never run out. I can't give you that because that's how I pay my kids' tuition. God said, yeah, that part. I'm about to lose my job in June. I got to start stashing to put up. God says, that stash. If you give it to me, you'll never run out. Because, see, it's a drought over there. But you're going to be in abundance. So how do you win in a tough place? You trust God with that which you don't even have. Because let's make it make sense. You know it ain't enough for you or your household. So what good do it do for you to stash it over for yourself? It's going to run out. But if you give it over to God, he said, I take little and make much. He's a God of multiplication. So you can't make it add up, but he can multiply it. Trust God. Don't stash away so much. You know how our grandparents taught us to keep a little to the side so your husband don't really know. But I was having you a little separate account. Make sure you ain't doing that with God. You'll miss your blessing, y'all. You will miss your blessing. God is concerned not just with what we have public access to. He wants us to decide to do because he's giving the direction. He's made a decree and he wants us to decide to do with the things that are private to us too. He want to dip off in your private stash today. All right, y'all be blessed. This is how you win in the wilderness. Now, I'm not trying to tell you nothing. I ain't trying to change your mind. That's not my job. I'm just trying to give you the keys so that you can win. Because it is time out for saying, ain't nobody told me. Now, God is saying, I done told you. I done sent the answers. If you don't have, it's because you don't want to have. If you ain't got, it's because you don't want to get. If you ain't healed, it's because you don't want to be whole. If you hungry, it's because you don't want to eat. It's time out for waiting on God, and God is waiting on us. So if you want to stay in the same place that you've been in since the very beginning, stay there. I ain't trying to change your mind. God wants you to draw down. But if you want to stay where you at, stay where you at. But I'm trying to teach you how to win. All right, y'all. Be blessed.